We noticed that in chapter 9, it ended with these three fellows that wanted to follow Jesus, and Jesus gave them some answers based upon their particular comment as to what they needed to do first before they could actually have what they considered a good fellowship with Jesus. Well, we're going to see here in chapter 10 that that theme starts off again. He picks right back up with that, and there is some more discipleship that actually happens, and then there's a responsibility to discipleship and a responsibility for those to truly want to disciple. Some people think that they are doing discipleship work, and we're going to see in chapter 10 that not everyone that thinks they're doing discipleship work is actually doing it. So with that as an introduction, let's go right on in now to Luke chapter 10.
Chapter 10. After these things the Lord appointed other 70 also, and sent them 2 and 2 before his face into every city and place, whither he himself would come. Therefore said he unto them, The harvest truly is great, but the laborers are few. Pray ye therefore the Lord of the harvest, that he would send forth laborers into his harvest. Go your ways. Behold, I send you forth as lambs among wolves. Carry neither purse nor scrip nor shoes, and salute no man by the way. And into whatsoever house ye enter, first say, Peace be to this house. And if the Son of Peace be there, your peace shall rest upon it. If not, it shall turn to you again. And in the same house remain, eating and drinking such things as they give, for the laborer is worthy of his hire. Go not from house to house. And into whatsoever city ye enter, and they receive you, eat such things as are set before you, and heal the sick that are therein, and say unto them, The kingdom of God is come nigh unto you. But into whatsoever city ye enter, and they receive you not, go your ways out into the streets of the same, and say, Even the very dust of your city, which cleaveth on us, we do wipe off against you. Notwithstanding be ye sure of this, that the kingdom of God is come nigh unto you. But I say unto you, that it shall be more tolerable in that day for Sodom than for that city. Woe unto thee, Chorazin! Woe unto thee, Bethsaida! For if the mighty works had been done in Tyre and Sidon, which have been done in you, they had a great while ago repented, sitting in sackcloth and ashes. But it shall be more tolerable for Tyre and Sidon at the judgment than for you. And thou, Capernaum, which art exalted to heaven, shalt be thrust down to hell. He that heareth you heareth me, and he that despiseth you despiseth me, and he that despiseth me despiseth him that sent me. And the 70 returned again with joy, saying,
Lord, even the devils are subject unto us through thy name.
And he said unto them, I beheld Satan as lightning fall from heaven. Behold, I give unto you power to tread on serpents and scorpions, and over all the power of the enemy, and nothing shall by any means hurt you. Notwithstanding in this rejoice not, that the spirits are subject unto you, but rather rejoice, because your names are written in heaven. In that hour Jesus rejoiced in spirit, and said, I thank thee, O Father, Lord of heaven and earth, that thou hast hid these things from the wise and prudent, and hast revealed them unto babes. Even so, Father, for so it seemed good in thy sight. All things are delivered to me of my Father, and no man knoweth who the Son is but the Father, and who the Father is but the Son, and he to whom the Son will reveal him. And he turned him unto his disciples, and said privately, Blessed are the eyes which see the things that ye see. For I tell you that many prophets and kings have desired to see those things which ye see, and have not seen them, and to hear those things which ye hear, and have not heard them. And behold, a certain lawyer stood up and tempted him, saying,
Master, what shall I do to inherit eternal life?
And he said unto him, What is written in the law? How readest thou? And he answering said,
Thou shalt love the Lord thy God with all thy heart, and with all thy soul, and with all thy strength, and with all thy mind, and thy neighbor as thyself.
And he said unto him, Thou hast answered right. This do, and thou shalt live. But he, willing to justify himself, said unto Jesus,
And who is my neighbor?
And Jesus answering said, A certain man went down from Jerusalem to Jericho, and fell among thieves, which stripped him of his raiment, and wounded him, and departed, leaving him half dead. And by chance there came down a certain priest that way, and when he saw him, he passed by on the other side. And likewise a Levite, when he was at the place, came and looked on him, and passed by on the other side. But a certain Samaritan, as he journeyed, came where he was, and when he saw him, he had compassion on him, and went to him, and bound up his wounds, pouring in oil and wine, and set him on his own beast, and brought him to an inn, and took care of him. And on the morrow, when he departed, he took out 2 pence, and gave them to the host, and said unto him, Take care of him, and whatsoever thou spendest more, when I come again, I will repay thee. Which now of these 3, thinkest thou, was neighbor unto him that fell among the thieves? And he said,
He that shewed mercy on him.
Then said Jesus unto him, Go, and do thou likewise. Now it came to pass, as they went, that he entered into a certain village, and a certain woman named Martha received him into her house. And she had a sister called Mary, which also sat at Jesus' feet, and heard his word. But Martha was cumbered about much serving, and came to him, and said,
Lord, dost thou not care that my sister hath left me to serve alone? Bid her therefore that she help me.
And Jesus answered and said unto her, Martha, Martha, thou art careful and troubled about many things, but one thing is needful, and Mary hath chosen that good part, which shall not be taken away from her.
All right. And that's chapter 10. Now, as we can see in this chapter, as we had stated, he's still doing his discipleship, and he's sending forth other people. Keep in mind the progression that we have here. Where is Jesus heading now? Remember from last chapter, he's heading to Jerusalem. So he's on his way to Jerusalem, and he is looking to prepare a particular place. He is sending forth people to basically prepare the towns and the cities. And he's on his way there. All right. Now, as he's on his way there, he's also using this as an opportunity to help maneuver the thinking of his followers to, number one, understand who he is, and number two, to make sure that they understand his purpose. Because to understand that he is the Messiah is fine, but then what do you mean by the Messiah? How do you define Messiah? All right. And of course, we saw from chapter 9 that the people and the various leaders and different ones have a very distorted view of what the Messiah is supposed to be and how he's supposed to come. And so Jesus has to fix all of that, and he's trying to tell them that I'm coming, I'm going to be suffering, I'm going to be put to death, and they're not hearing it. But yet Jesus goes on, but there are other things and other lessons that they have to learn. And so Jesus continues on, and as we'll see here in chapter 10, that he continues on teaching and training people on a variety of things. And as we'll see here, we'll see this in a minute, there comes a time when the light bulb will go on as to why Jesus truly came and what the true role of the Messiah is. All right, but let's take a look at this. Let's go back up. That's just kind of a quick overview. But if we look here in chapter 10, in the very beginning, it says, after these things. After what things? Well, chapter 9, he was talking to these people that said, Lord, I'll come follow you, but let me go bury my father first. And we explained that it wasn't so much that his father had already died, but he said, let me go until my father dies. And once my father has died, then I will come and follow you. That was chapter 9. And he also talked about the man that said, well, let me go bid farewell. All right. So now in chapter 10, he says, now after these things, the Lord appointed other 70. Yes, sir.
Yeah, this disciples 70.
Mm-hmm.
And now, what do we get? I keep forgetting that 72 and 70. Where do we get 72 versus 70?
I'm not familiar with the 72.
Some theologians say that there were 72 disciples. Some say 70. Scriptures most of the time say 70. But some theologians say 72. And I've been trying to figure out where they're getting that 72 from.
Well, maybe we'll come across it. I don't recall the 72, but I do know. I mean, it could be a point of where they're saying the 70 plus the 12, maybe 82.
No.
But
I read and I was reading. I forget. I've heard a lot of theologians come up with it.
okay. Well, we'll keep on going as we go through it. We'll keep an eye out for that. But we see here where he says he had appointed other 70 also. All right, this is in addition. So this is a new 70, and he sent them out 2 by 2 before the face of the city into every place. All right, so now he's got these individuals going out. Now look at verse 2. He says, therefore he said unto them, who's he talking to now? The 70. The harvest truly is what? Great. But the laborers are what? Few. All right, so he's letting them see that there's a lot of things to be done. Very few people that will do it. Now we're going to see here, once again, remember, everything in the Bible is connected. Everything is relative and built upon. There was no isolated statement. Jesus didn't make any rogue remarks. All of his remarks are connective, and they all apply to each other. And we're going to see here what he means about this aspect, that the laborers are few. Because there's a lot of people that think they're doing the work of the Lord, but are not. They're doing a different thing. All right? So he said, and we ought to do what? Pray. We're talking about prayer again. Remember, Jesus always talked about this. He used prayer, and he also instructed in prayer. He said, pray ye therefore, that the Lord of the harvest would send forth laborers unto the harvest. All right? And I think it's important to keep in mind, remember, the harvest is the gathering of the ripe. That's what the harvest is. When you go and gather in that which is ready to be brought in. You don't harvest beforehand. You don't harvest afterhand, because then everything's going to be spoiled. You can't harvest beforehand because things are not ready. But when the harvest happens. And so for us, the harvest is for us to be ready at the time that we are to meet the Lord. Now, that could be at the rapture. It could be at the end of the world. Also could be at the end of your life. There's a harvest of multiple variations going on all the time. All right? And so we have to keep that in mind. And because the harvest is going on at all times, in a lot of ways, because people leave this earth every day. All right? But we got to make sure that people are prepared to leave. All right? But then so he says now, there are a few laborers, and we're going to get back to that in a minute. But let's look at verse 3. He says, go your way. Behold, I send you forth as what? Lambs amongst who? Wolves. All right, so he's telling you right away. It's danger. He's letting you know that you're not going to be appreciated. You're not going to be really popular. It's not going to be a very fun message. You're going to kind of stand out, and people are going to try to devour you. All right? But look at what he says here. Verse 4. He says, now keep that in mind, that you're lambs amongst wolves. We're going to need to remember that in just a minute. But let's go to verse 4. Carry neither purse, nor scrip, nor shoes, and salute no man by the way. And whatsoever house ye enter, first say, peace be unto this house. And if the Son of Peace be there, in other words, if there is a relationship of kindness and peace, your peace shall rest upon it. And if not, it shall return to you again. Verse 7, it says, and in the same house remain, eating and drinking such things as they give, for the labor is worthy of his hire. And go not from house to house. So what is he saying? He's saying when you have an opportunity to go and someone receives you with peace, you stay there and you take what they give you. In other words, you don't say, well, I'll stay here, but I got to have steak every night. I got to have potatoes and cornbread, French fries. You take what they give you. Yes.
And it's on the other hand, it's like, I don't need that. You shouldn't be that disrespectful. No, if they, if this is what they partake, then you're supposed to partake with you.
Exactly. Now, we may say, okay, well, that's no big deal. But in the Jewish community, that was a big deal because they were very particular about the way and how food was prepared. All right? So we always have to keep that in mind, especially if they had an opportunity to go to a Gentile city. Now they got to eat what's put before them. That's going to take them to understand that what Jesus said, yes, when you're cooking, you may not cook certain things a certain way because of how you were raised up under the Mosaic law. But when you go to Corinth or when you go to Rome or when you go to some of these other cities, they're going to cook things a lot different. Don't hold them to the same historical, traditional, cultural responsibilities that you have. Understand their ways and accept what they give you, because they're giving you out of their goodness and out of the peace that they have within their house and welcoming you. So Jesus is saying, don't make everybody have to be just like you. Remember that there are a variety of ways in which goodness can be accomplished. Goodness can be accomplished in a variety of ways. Everybody doesn't have to do it just the way you did it. That's so important to keep in mind. I think it's one of the things that you have to keep in mind when you are a leader, when you are a trainer, when you are a parent, when you have leadership responsibilities. Sometimes we want the people under you, or you want your children, or you want your students to do things just like you do, and that may not always happen. They may have a variety of ways and how they accomplish something which actually may work best for them. So you kind of have to always be open to that. Now, with that being said, we got to put a balance in it, because in a lot of things in life, the ends does not always justify the what? The means. All right? You can't tell a person, well, you need to get money, and it's, well, I got money. Well, how did you get it? I sold drugs. Well, the ends does not justify the means in that respect. So there is a balance to it. How do we know that balance? That's the part. That's where maturity, that's where spirituality comes in. Knowing that there are a variety of ways of being good, but we make sure that you know the line between what's good and what's not good, what's wholesome and what's unwholesome. You see that? Expecting and accepting variety, but not accepting unwholesome variety. And that takes maturity. It does. And sometimes we are good at that. Sometimes we can get fooled. Sometimes we can get tricked. All right? But that's all part of the learning. And remember, and that's what the devil does. He comes first looking like he's wholesome, but really he's not. All right? And that's why we need discernment, which is what we get from the Spirit of God. All right? Where did I leave off at? All right, look at 8. It says, and into whatever city you enter, and they receive you, eat such things as is set before you. Verse 9. Look what he says. Heal the sick that are therein, and say unto them, the kingdom of God is come nigh unto you. So in other words, you give healing and you give comfort. You let them know that they're part of the kingdom of God if they continue in the ways that you are instructing them in, and you heal. Now, healing can be a variety of things. All right, and we can really spend a whole lesson in talking about all of the variety of ways of healing. But there's such a things as just healing people from physical things, sickness, disease. There's mental, there's emotional, there's social, there's all types of healing that can take place. All right, but he says when you go in there, heal the sick. All right, verse 10. But into whatsoever city you enter, and they receive you not, go your way. All right, and so he tells them you don't have to be bothered with them if they don't want to hear it. Don't spend a whole lot of time trying to convince people that don't want to hear it. Look what he says. Verse 11. He says, even the very dust of your of that. Let me read it again. Even the very dust of your city, which cleaveth unto us, we do wipe off against you. So he's saying when you leave that city, you wipe the very dust off your feet, and you let them know that everything in this city has been condemned, even the very dust. Now what does that mean? That means that there is nothing in a city, and that represents a culture that has totally devoided itself of the things of Christ. Nothing in that is not going to be judged. Every single wrong. And can you imagine that? Imagine that God's going to say to certain people and certain groups and nations that every single wrong, every little teeny thought of wrong, every big deed of wrong, every wrong that you did, you're going to be held accountable for it. And you're going to have to answer to me for it. Can you imagine God looking at you with no mercy? With no grace? I can't even imagine that. There's no way I would want to be in that situation where God would look at me and say, I'm going to look at you as though you me, because you didn't accept me. You thought you was just as good as me. Okay, let's look at you. You know, sometimes you take, some of these young kids, they growing up and they think they all this. You got to look at them. Oh, you think you a man. You think you grown. Let's look at, okay, well, let's deal with grown folk stuff. And then sometimes that little teenager be like, oh, okay. They begin to feel that I ain't there yet. Well, I don't even kind of fade into comparison when God said, oh, you think you know more than I do. You think you understand the ways. Remember what God said to Job? He said, where were y'all when I laid the foundations of the world? Tell me how the stars, stay in the sky. He was like, all right, stand up like a man. Talk to me. They couldn't do it. All right. We don't want to stand before God in our sins having to answer for every sin. But it's interesting that Jesus tells them, don't spend a whole lot. And it's almost like we would want to, on our situation, we would want to be like, please listen to what I'm telling you, because you're going to want to, you're not going to want to go through the consequences of you rejecting us. But Jesus says, you do what I tell you. You go in there, you tell them what they're supposed to hear. But if they don't want it, don't beat them over the head with it. Because well, we're going to see this in a minute, but I'll just give you a little preview. What is it that really saves a person? I mean, what is it that produces, is it the wisdom that I'm saying right now that makes this word alive to you? No, it's not. Because in reality, my wisdom is not anything. The only reason the word becomes alive to you when we sit and study it is because God has drawn you and God has chosen to reveal it unto you. I could say all kinds of stuff to you. It has nothing to do with what I say. It has more to do with how your heart is. And the fact that your heart wants to know, then almost anything that is discussed and said about the Word of God becomes alive to you. And you truly hear it. All right? And we'll see that in a minute here. Once again, it shows you how all this is connected. All right? In verse 12. But I say unto you that it shall be what? More tolerable in that day for Sodom than for that city. Why? Because Sodom didn't have the disciples of Jesus come to them. But this city did. And if that city rejects it, Sodom, which was destroyed by God because of its evil deeds, will have less accountability for its evil deeds than that city that rejects you. Look at what he goes on. Look at verse 13. Woe unto you, Chorazin! Woe unto you, Bethsaida! For if the mighty works that have been done in Tyre and Sidon, which were done, had been done in you, they would have, they had a great a while ago repented. Let me read that again. If the mighty works which have been done in Tyre and Sidon, which have been done in you, they would have a great while ago what? Repented. In other words, they're saying that if Tyre and Sidon would have had someone like these disciples come to them, they would have repented. But you were blessed to get it. And if you don't repent, it's against you. Once again, he's saying every single thing. And when Jesus says, woe, I mean, I don't have the vocabulary to this because I really don't know. I can't understand the depths of when the Lord says woe to a person, to a nation, to a culture. When God says woe, it's unfathomable how bad it's going to be. All right? All right, and he says they would have repented in sackcloth and ashes. Verse 14. But it shall be more tolerable for Tyre and Sidon in the judgment day than for you. Verse 15. And thou Capernaum. All right, and this is where Jesus had set up one of his headquarters for a time, in Capernaum. He says, but thou Capernaum, which art exalted to heaven, shall be thrust down to hell. I mean, you're going to end up in the bottom parts of hell, the worst parts. In other words, you're going to have the lowest stature of those that have been condemned. Why? Because now you're going to pay for every sin, every wrong. Some people sin against ignorance, but when you sin against light, it's willing. Not only did you sin by not accepting truth, but when truth was delivered to you, you rejected it. It's a bad situation, and we don't want to be in those types of situations. But Jesus doesn't mix words. He tells them, you're going to be it's going to be a bad day for you if you reject light. All right? And that's why we don't want to reject light. We want to continue to gain the light. We want to continue to study the word, but let's not reject it. Let's make sure that we receive it and that we accept it. All right? Look at verse 17. It says, and the 70 returned again with joy, saying, Lord, even the devils are subject unto us through thy name. All right, and so now they come back and they're all excited because it works. You know, sometimes when you're trying something and you're trying to do something, somebody gives you a formula or a kit and you put it together and you go, ooh, it works. You're just happy. You're like, wow, it works. You know, you in shop class. I don't know if you know, when I was a little boy, we had electric shop. They don't know if they do that nowadays, but we had to build a doorbell. And we had to wrap these coils around this thing and hook up a wire and actually plug it into electricity. Something I made with my hands. I had to plug it into the house current. It was scary to me. But when you plugged it in and then you had to touch the wires and the doorbell went, I was like, woo, it works. I didn't understand it all. Didn't understand why it worked. All I knew was I did what the shop teacher told me to do, plugged it all in, didn't blow the house up, didn't set the house on fire. It worked. All right. And I was just like, wow, I was excited. I felt kind of intelligent. But I didn't know anything truly about electricity. I just followed what the shop teacher told us to do. And so it's the same thing. When they followed what Jesus told them to do, it wasn't because they were so wise. It wasn't because they now understood all the spiritual laws. It wasn't because they had now become, equal to God. It was because they just did what Jesus told them to do. And when they did it, it worked. And they was just so happy. I was like, wow, it works. You know, even the devils are subject unto us. All right. And then verse 18, and he, being Jesus, said unto them, I beheld Satan as lightning fall from heaven. So he's basically saying, initially, I know who Satan is, and I understand how, but he's fallen. He felt like lightning coming out of heaven. Satan's origin was in heaven. But he fell out of heaven, all right? And he fell like lightning. In other words, this blast. And there's two things you can take from that because the Bible depicts Satan as an angel of light, all right? And he is now a false light. In other words, he's a way that seemingly is a lightened path, but really that path leads to destruction. In Revelation, when he comes in power, he comes as a rider on a white horse, emulating the things of Christ. but in reality he has no true light within him. But Jesus sees him falling as lightning from heaven. Verse 19, and behold, I give unto you power to tread upon serpents, to tread and scorpions, and over all the powers of the enemy. All right, so he says, and I give you that power. I gave it to you, and you used it right, and it did work. But understand this, and nothing shall by any means hurt you. All right, verse 20, notwithstanding, in this rejoice not. In other words, don't get all puffed up. Don't get too happy about this. Because why? This is not the true reason and the true purpose for your eternal joy. The fact that you have authority over the devil. Because the devil is fallen. Everybody's going to have authority over him eventually. All right? But spirits are don't rejoice that spirits are subject unto you, but rather rejoice because what? Your name is written in heaven. That's why you rejoice. And there should be the center of your joy, that you have your name written in heaven. That should be why we really have a comfort, a true peace, that my name is written in heaven. Why? Because I follow the teachings of Christ. I accept Jesus as my Savior. I believe in the Lord. I trust the Lord. I accept his word. I follow his spirit. Jesus is my propitiation for my sin. All right? And we're going to see here in a minute that some people don't want Jesus as the propitiation for their sin. They want to justify themselves. We're going to get to that in a minute. All right? Now, verse 21. It says, and in that hour, Jesus rejoiced in the Spirit. Now, wait a minute. Let's pause here. We need to stop for a moment. What did this just say? Verse 21. It says, in that hour, Jesus rejoiced in the Spirit. Why did Jesus rejoice? And this is something that I think each and every person will want to take notice of. You have somebody that you truly love, you truly care, and you find out that there is something that makes them rejoice. You want to understand what that is, don't you? Because if it's in your power to do that for them, you want to be able to do that. All right, so wait a minute. The Word of God just said Jesus rejoiced. Let's see if we can understand why. All right, look at this. It says that Jesus rejoiced in spirit, saying, I thank thee, O Father, Lord of heaven and earth, that thou hast hid these things from the what? Wise and prudent, and have what? Revealed them unto who? Babes. Even so, Father, for so it seemeth good in thy sight. Now, let's understand this. Jesus is rejoicing because the wise and the prudent, the people that think they know all the things, or in other words, that they think that they don't need Jesus, the Spirit of God, the Father, because they understand how the world works. You see, they understand it. I know how it works. I have thought it through, and I've come to my conclusions. I know how the world works. I understand it. I think it's interesting that people that don't believe in God, they say, there is no God. But they know, well, how do you know? Because there is no God. But how did you come to that kind of a conclusion, that there is no God? You really must be extremely intelligent. You must be eternal in your thinking. And you must have been here from the beginning. In order for you to make such an emphatic statement, there is no God, you truly must be brilliant. But Jesus says the people that rely on that kind of brilliance, the brilliance that is so-called better than God. In other words, once again, we're going back to that same type of people. The people that will look God in the face and say, I know more about what's going on than your so-called God. Your so-called God don't know what's going on, because if there was such a God, he wouldn't allow suffering in this world. Now, you ever hear people say that before? Mm-hmm. If there was a God, he wouldn't allow suffering. Okay. If there was a God, that means a God that has all power and authority, all right? And let's say there is a God, and he allows suffering, all right? He allows suffering. But now you say that if there was a God, he wouldn't allow suffering. Now what that says is that your understanding about what suffering produces and why people have to suffer anyway is more, you understand it more than God does. You understand the truly bad and the negative outcomes of suffering to the point that you know what's more prudent, more better for people, and you could advise God on how to not allow people to suffer. You could actually give God advice. God, you should not allow suffering. Because, and God would just say, well, why shouldn't I allow suffering? And you would tell him, because everybody shouldn't have to suffer. I mean, you could basically give God advice. People that say that are saying, I could advise God. I could tell God a little bit about how to run this universe, how to run eternity. People that think they have the answers, if there was a God, there would be this. Anytime a person makes that statement, they're in dangerous ground, because what you're saying is that I know more about how to run this planet, this universe, everything. I know more about it than God does. And in reality, we don't. To put it in perspective, you see a child that enjoys candy and cake and ice cream, potato chips, and soda pop. Well, a parent knows that those things are edible and you can't eat them, but you can't eat them all the time. That's a once in a while thing. And you understand that because you're just a parent. But a child, all he knows is, that's what I like. Why you give me these beets and string beans and stuff I don't like? Why you making me eat this stuff when I really just want cake and pie, potato chips and ice cream? That's what I like. And if I was a parent, that's what I would eat. No, you wouldn't. Because if you was a parent, you'd understand that you got to eat vegetables and that produces a strong body. Well, let's go right back to the same thing. If there was a God, we wouldn't have all this suffering. Do you really think that God knows what he's doing? And if you don't think he knows what he's doing, then you put yourself at that level to be the wise and the prudent. I know more about how this world runs than God does. And in my mind, there should never be any suffering. So whatever God there is, whatever he's doing, he's making a very big mistake by allowing people to die and babies to be born sick and people to be born deformed. God don't know what he's doing by allowing that stuff. You're on some dangerous ground, because you're speaking as the wise and the prudent. And Jesus says that the gospel will be hid from you then. You won't understand it. That's why I'm saying to you, it has nothing to do with what I'm saying. What I'm saying is not what's bringing, whatever it is that the Lord is speaking to you in your heart and your mind. It's not really because of what I'm saying. All I'm doing is just stimulating what God is already doing for you. God is the one that drew you. God is the one that's working in your heart. My words is just talking and just scratching the surface of what God already put in you. It has nothing to do. Me talking or anybody talking, any great preacher, Paul, all he did was explain the word, but it was the fact that God called you that made the word alive. You see what I'm saying? See, water has life in it. But if you pour water on rocks, I don't care how much water you pour on a rock is not going to grow. It's not. But when you put water on a seed and on fertile soil, then that seed will grow. So it's not so much that it's water, it's what the water is on. So when we are studying the word, it's not so much that we are studying the word that's produced. If you're a rock and you're sitting in here, your heart is rock hard, everything that we're saying is just water going off a rock. Nothing's going to grow. Nothing's going to be produced. But it's the same water, nothing's different, that's being poured on the good soil that's producing what? Growth. So the reality of it is, are you one of these wise and prudent people that know more than God? Or are you one of those that have humbled themselves and said, I need the Lord? Because if you know you need the Lord, then your heart is ready. God is watering your heart even right now. All right? Did you have a question? Okay. All right. So Jesus rejoiced at this, that these things were hidden from the wise and the prudent, and have revealed them unto babes. All right. In other words, unto those that don't think that they know it all. I in the presence of God, I'm like a baby. When it comes to me being in the presence of the Lord, you might as well put a baby before, because that's how I am. As a baby, can't do anything for himself, can't feed himself, can't wipe himself, can't do anything, can't go nowhere. That's how I am before God. So Jesus says that the things and the truth of God has been revealed unto people that see themselves as babes in comparison to God. How come they're suffering in this world? Man, I don't know. But God does. And I tell you what, I trust God. And I have to tell you this. He knows what's right. He knows what's good. And whatever the suffering that we have in it is producing a proper end and a proper good. I got to trust the Lord. So if suffering's in this world, it's because we need to understand certain things through that suffering. And I have to just be a babe before the Lord. I can't explain it to you. I don't know as much as God knows. I just know that's how God has produced it. And I have to accept it. But some people don't want to accept it. They want to tell God, God, you don't know what you're doing. You got to be very careful with that. All right? So I think we wanted to make sure that we pointed that out. All right? Now look at verse 22. All things are delivered to me of the Father. Who is this speaking? Jesus. How many things are delivered unto him? Everything. All things. No man knoweth the Son, knoweth who the Son is, but who?
Father.
Oh, wait a minute. No man knows. So we really think we know everything there is to know about Jesus. All we know is what's been revealed. We'll see that in a minute. All we know is what's been revealed. And that's why we can't understand certain things, because there's certain things that are going on that we can't really understand. We don't see in those shades of colors, of realities, we don't have that dimensional thinking. Only thing we have about the spiritual realm and how things are truly working is what's being revealed. We'll see this in a minute. Look at this. Who the Son is, but the Father. And who the Father is, but the Son, and to whom the Son will reveal him. You see that? So what are we trusting on? We're trusting on the Spirit of God to call us and for God to reveal himself to us. It has nothing to do with my wise words, anybody else's wise words, your wise words. If God don't call you and reveal himself to you, you can read this Bible 400 million times and you'll never come across with anything, because it's like pouring water on a rock. Until your heart has been changed by you giving your heart to the Lord and the Lord calling you, it's not going to mean a thing to you. And that's why Jesus didn't waste time with people that didn't want to hear it. You see the connection now? Because see, that's like me saying, come on, rock, I'm going to keep pouring water on you. Please grow something. Please grow some leaves, rock. And you just talk to the rock, and you feel so bad for the rock. I pour water on the soil. I pour water on this little sandy desert, and even a cactus came out of that thing. But rock, I'm pouring water after water after water on you, and you just don't grow anything. Please, rock, grow a little bit. Now, how, if you see somebody saying that, you're going to be like, brother, you don't understand rocks. You can pour water on, you can take the Hudson River and pour it on that rock. That rock is not going to grow. If anything, the rock's going to diminish because the water's going to help erode it. The rock's not going to grow. Water's not going to help that rock. And that's what Jesus said. He said, when you run across people that don't want to hear the word, wipe your feet. Move on. Their hearts are rock. All right? What did the Lord say about Pharaoh's heart? He hardened his heart. And so God is like, he didn't waste time with that. And this almost seems like we would be like, but we have to see things sometimes as God sees them. And because we can't always see it that way, because he only allows us to see the things that he reveals to us, we have compassion and think we just got to try to help this person. God says when they reject the word, you leave them. And if there's another opportunity for that person, God will send the person. He allowed them to go there. All right, that's what happened with Jonah. Remember, Jonah was supposed to go preach to who? To Nineveh? And Jonah didn't want to go, but Nineveh was a city, but God knew that if the city could just get one more message in there, it would repent. And it did repent at the preaching of Jonah. All right, and so sometimes the Lord will send one more person to a person so their heart can be changed from a heart of stone, the Bible speaks of, to a heart of what? Flesh. All right? All right. Where are we now? 23. All right. And he turned again unto his disciples and said privately, Blessed are the eyes which see the things ye see. For I tell you that many prophets and kings have desired to see the things which ye see and have not seen them, and to hear the things which ye hear and have not heard them. So now Jesus is saying unto his disciples, understand the situation that you're in, the time of history that you're in. Many people wanted to see what you saw, but they never saw it. Moses only saw it at the point of the Mount of Transfiguration, but he wasn't born and alive at the time when Jesus walked this earth. Elijah, King David, Isaiah, Habakkuk, Daniel, all them great, they weren't alive at the time when Jesus actually came to this planet. But they desired. Many kings, Hezekiah, Josiah, all these folks that were historical good people that never actually got a chance to see Jesus actually come in the flesh and walk this earth and do his teaching. But he said, but you have it. Understand the moment that you're in. Now that's important to us because we need to understand the moment that we're in. We're in a time where grace and mercy is being handed out by God. Grace and mercy is being handed out. That's like a time of just, you know what? I don't care what you did. Just come on and get yourself squared away. Just come on, almost like an amnesty program. You done wrong. You know you're sinful. And how many have sinned? All. Come on and get yourself together. But you see, this time of grace and mercy is only for a time. It's only for a time, and eventually it's going to do what? It's going to end. It's going to close. All right? All right, let's look at this next portion here. All right? Verse 25. And behold, a certain lawyer stood up and tempting him, saying, Master, what shall I do to inherit eternal life? All right, wonderful question, right? What should I do then to inherit eternal life? Understand this about his question. What did it say that he was trying to do? Tempt him. So he really didn't want to know. He was trying to get, because he thought he was one of the wise and prudent. He thought already that he had it done. So what he was trying to do was to really justify himself. Lord, there's nothing you can tell me that I'm not already doing. There's nothing you can tell me that I don't already know about. I'm going to prove it to you because everything you say to me, I'm going to be able to say, yep, I do that. Yep, I do that. All right, but take a look at this. All right. Verse 26. And he, being Jesus, said unto him, What is written in the law? How readest thou? How many times did I tell you about that? All right. Jesus is pointing out what? If you have a question, did you first check it out in the what? In the Word of God. Did you check it out to see if the answers, how do you read the Bible? How do you read Scripture? How do you read the law? All right? And so then the man gives an answer. Look what the answer the man gives. And he answered and said, that thou love the Lord thy God with all thy heart, and with all thy soul, and with all thy strength, and with all thy mind, and thy neighbor as thyself. And he said unto him, Thou hast answered right. This do, and thou shalt live. Now, we have to put a pause here. Jesus didn't say, trust and have faith in me, and ye shall live. Jesus didn't say that. He told the man that if you do what you just said, you shall live. But let's go back, because what is he reading from? He's getting this instruction from what? The law. It's from the teachings of Moses. The teachings of Moses, once again, is a mirror that we look at to see, have I done this? Have I done this? Have I done this? And when we find stuff that we have not done, we can say, okay, I have not fulfilled the law. Has anybody ever fulfilled the law? Only who? Only Jesus. No human being has ever done it. So when you look in the law of Moses, you're supposed to see yourself as insufficient. I can't do it. Therefore, now I need another way to get to heaven, because I can't get to heaven by following Moses' law, because I can't do that. I'm imperfect. So how do I get to heaven? I get to heaven by who? Jesus. All right. But look at what this man's situation. So, but let's look at it. His answer was, verse 27, once again, he answered and said, thou shalt love the Lord thy God with all thy heart. That means you never have a time in your heart where you are questioning or concerned or having confusion about God. All your heart. With all your soul. You never feel bad, no emotional discomfort, nothing about it. You always know that God is 100% truly always on your side. You don't have no problems, no worries or nothing. Anybody here can do that? Have done that? We have it. With all our soul. And with all thy strength. Everything I do, 100% is always for the things of God. I never do anything for myself. Well, everybody's quiet. So I guess nobody's matching up to. And with all thy mind, I don't think about nothing but the Lord and how I can do for the Lord. All right. So we can continue. And thy neighbor as thyself. I think about other people more than I think about myself. All right. We're all disqualified, right?
Next question.
All right. And Jesus says that, all right, you've answered right. Do this, and you shall live. And it's almost like Jesus, sure, okay, fine. Do that, and you'll end up in heaven. But what? You can't. But see, this is where you get people that could produce all these kind of legalistic religions, because they're going about trying to do this. But that's not the point of what Jesus was saying. He wasn't saying, do this. In other words, yeah, go ahead and do this and continue to do it, and you continue on living. He's trying to say, yeah, well, if we can do all that, you will live. But the reality of it is, no one can do it. And when you try to base people's salvation off of people that can do this, you put people up to fail. And you got a lot of these legalistic churches and legalistic teachings that try to make people feel bad because they can't do everything that's written in the law of Moses. Well, nobody can. All right? But we can be justified through Jesus. Look at this, verse 29 now. And he being willing to justify himself, look at the brother. He wanted to justify himself, said to Jesus, who is my neighbor? Now, understand, the reason why he asked that question is because he thought he had everything covered except for maybe one portion. So this brother thought that he loved God with all his heart and with all his soul and with all his strength and with all his mind. But he had a little question about, do I really love my neighbor as myself? And so he had to ask Jesus, well, Jesus, well, can you define to me who my neighbor is? Who really is my neighbor? And Jesus answered and said, a certain man went down from Jerusalem, and he gave him the parable, the story of the parable of the Good Samaritan. And so we know what happens. The Good Samaritan went down from Jerusalem to Jericho, and he fell among what? Thieves. And they robbed him and stripped him of his raiment and all of his possessions, and beat him and left him there half dead. Well, it says while he was laying there bloody, a priest came by and saw the man and passed by on the what? On the other side. Then there came a Levite, one of the lawyers of that day, and he came by and he passed by the man. But then Jesus said that a Samaritan came by. Now, understand, the Samaritans were what? They were people that were half Hebrew and half Gentile. And the Samaritans and the Hebrews didn't have any dealings. But yet this man went over there and he helped the man. He bound up his wounds. He poured oil on him. He put the man on his own animal, took him to an inn, let him stay there, and then when he had to leave, he told the owner of the inn, let this brother that's here, that's wounded, stay here. Here's some money, and if you happen to spend more on him than what I've already given you, when I come back, I'll give you even more to cover up your expenses. But take care of him. Now, Jesus asked him, he said in verse 37, which now of these three thinkest thou was a neighbor unto him that fell among the thieves? And verse 37, and he said, he that showed mercy on him. Then said Jesus unto him, go and do thou likewise. So once again, he's telling him, this is it. If you want to earn eternal life through that, you got to go do everything that this man did. Help every individual that you come across that is less fortunate than you, and build them up to be able to have an ability to move out of their dire circumstance to a better circumstance. Well, people take this a lot of times out of context, because what people say is, this is the responsibility that we have as all Christians. Now, granted, we ought to be like the Good Samaritan, but nobody's going to be perfect. You're not going to stop for every broken down car you see on the highway. You don't do it. You're not going to pick up every hitchhiker you see. You just don't do it. You're not going to help every deranged person you see along the side of the road that's asking for help or money. You don't do it. But we do find that the Spirit of God leads us to help certain people, doesn't it? And that's what we have to trust, that the Spirit of God is going to help us to know who we are to help and who God has given to us. The problem with this is that if you think that you can do this for every individual, and if you think you can truly love God and you can truly hold on to the entire Mosaic law without flaw, then you become wise and what? And prudent. Because I really don't need Jesus. And that was the purpose of this man's question. That's why it says that he asked Jesus this question, tempting him, that he doesn't need anything other than his own ability to uphold the Mosaic law in his view. And remember, Jesus told the Pharisees that you guys are whitewashed sepulchres. He says, because you polish up the teachings and the law of Moses so that you look like you are doing right. And outwardly, people see you as, well, it looks like they are doing it right. But what is a whitewashed sepulcher? It's a place where inside there is what? Dead men's bones. Nobody can keep the law. Nobody can. Only Jesus did. Therefore, if you're trusting in keeping the law and being perfect, you're not going to make it in. And you're going to miss the fact that Jesus is your Savior. That's what you're going to miss. But you ain't going to miss it. All right. So he's fine. So now this portion concludes verse 38. Now it came to pass as they went, and he entered into a certain village, and a certain woman named who? Martha received him in her house. And she had a sister called who? Mary, which also sat at Jesus' feet and heard his words. Heard his word. Look at verse 40. But Martha was what? Cumbered about much serving, and came to him and said, Lord, doest thou not care that my sister have left me to serve alone? Bid her therefore that she help me. Now, here's the situation here. Once again, Jesus just got finished saying that people that think they can serve every jot and tittle and fix everything for everybody, you can't do it. But now here's Martha trying to do it. She's trying to be, I'm going to fix everybody's situation for the moment. And she's in the kitchen, and she's in the house, and she's working. She's trying to make things perfect. But when you are trying to make things perfect in your relationship with the Lord, instead of making your relationship perfect, you're going to miss it, because you're going to end up doing so much task that you're not going to be at Jesus' feet. You're not going to be there. And look at what Jesus says. Verse 41. And Jesus answered and said unto her, Martha, Martha, thou art careful and troubled about many things. In other words, he's saying, you got all these things in your mind, all these things that you're trying to fix up and make things perfect. You're so concerned about making everything so right, but you're missing this. Look at verse 40. But one thing thou needest, and Mary hath chosen that good part, which shall not be taken away from her. You need Jesus more than you need to try to be perfect. That's the bottom line. That's the grunt teaching of chapter 10. You need to know more about Jesus than you need to know about trying to be perfect. Now, we try to be the best we can. We try to do all that we can do. But if you are striving to be perfect and to have people see you as flawless, and I want people to see that I am perfect, there's nothing wrong with me, you are not going to be where Jesus wants you to be. And you're not going to be hearing from Jesus, and it's going to be blinded to you. Now, Martha would have been blinded from the teachings of Jesus if Jesus hadn't explained to her. Mary has gotten the right seat. She understands. Do a few things, but the reality of it is, the most important thing is for you to know what I'm saying, not to be walking around trying to make things so perfect for me. And some people are just so caught up, and everything has got to be perfect. And if it's not perfect, they ain't happy. But then they do so much perfection that they don't have relationship. All you got is, all this perfection, and you can show, hey, look at what we're doing, and everything is set up, everything goes off, man, just like that. Every I is dotted, every T is crossed. We got things going on, but you don't know Jesus, and you're missing out. Yes.
It's like you can't have perfection without Jesus.
Exactly.
You have to have Jesus in order for anything to work. So it's just useless to try to do it the other way around. Have perfection and then try to get to Jesus.
Right.
It's the other way. Get Jesus and then He'll perfect what needs to be perfected.
That's the key. We cannot produce perfection. We come to Jesus, and in time, when we enter into eternity, Jesus will perfect us. We cannot perfect ourselves. We do need to develop and continue to build our relationship with the Lord. And that's the thing that we ought to do. All right, we're going to stop at this point. We will pick up in chapter 11 on next week.